So 20 years of writing craft. And in the midst of all of that, a lot of time spent business modeling. And I know there's a lot of creative passion and fuel that people have, but I would always encourage any creative, if you can't build a business model around your creative endeavor that doesn't allow you to sustain that work, then you're not done yet. You still got to work that. You got to start business modeling. How is this going to be sustainable? Because especially if you're doing something you feel like God's calling you to do it, sustainability and being able to be there 15, 20 years later, that's part of what I think God deserves. Like if we just flame out after 2 years because we run out of capital or we don't have the energy or we overestimated what we can do. And I've been guilty of all of those things. So some of this is coming from like real, just hard earned experience, but the business modeling is really important. And then I would say the other piece is like asking God to help with your stuff. It sounds so weird and basic. And it took me probably 15 years before I started doing that. But God is like the creator and he's still creating stuff. And he is the best designer and the best business modeler and the best writer and the best, like he's the best everything. And so like whatever it is you're doing, if you've got a restaurant and you're making the next, amazing dish, like invite him into that and see what he does. If you're a fashion designer and you've got some really cool, like killer styles and designs you want to get out there in the market, like invite him into that. Like he's got ideas on all of this stuff. So prayerfully invite him into that. And then be open to adjusting and going the direction he wants you to go. As best as we can as humans, interpret that. I've found like when you're actually asking him and you actually want to know, like stuff is pretty clear. He'll course correct you pretty good, but then he'll also give those affirmations when you're on the path that's lined up with his macro plan.
Hello and welcome to Sumaya Unveiled. Today we have a special guest, Jason H. Tucker. He is a writer, an illustrator, a graphic designer, and he's also the recipient of the Real Maker Story of the Year Award in the category of interactive storytelling. Jason, welcome. What you're doing is something that I think is better seen visually and experienced than explained. So we're going to do it a little bit backwards today. So
Okay.
I'm going to turn everything over to you, and we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration of what you do, and then afterwards we'll dig into the story.
Okay, cool. So Group Lore is my company, and we make immersive digital interactive stories, primarily targeted for middle grade age students. And so that's what we're going to be demoing today. It's our flagship story called The Way of Yahweh. It's an interactive web comic, which is basically a comic book that's on the web. So go figure. So let me share my screen. We'll dive into the overall interface here. And if I start talking jargony, let me know.
Okay. Well,
So this is the Group Lore homepage. So we got the big picture why we're doing what we're doing behind the storytelling, and Group Lore is a faith-oriented media company, and so we're telling stories from a Christian worldview. And so this homepage kind of walks through all of that. And then down in this area is we're going to dive into the actual product. So you click on the this little go to the way here. And I'll just kind of give a real quick overview of the product, and then we'll dive right in. So every choice has a consequence. So we have an award-winning adventure series that lets you and your friends decide if two teen outcasts will stop a madman from destroying the last city on Earth. One of the really cool things about this property is that you can read as either the hero, Ty, or the heroine, Liv. And so it's kind of like if you think Indiana Jones met Lara Croft at 15 and went on an adventure, that's what this is. And it is a digital morality tale. So read as either Tyrant Hunter or Olivia Trace in an explosive, interactive adventure that threatens to pull apart their lives, their faith, in their world. And we have a little link here that goes to our approach, which is a faith-based, parent-minded approach to entertainment media. And we kind of walk through a whole bunch of stuff on this page that talks about the why behind it and then the content kind of value system that we have within our actual storytelling. And so that's really important for parents and educators and youth pastors, that sort of thing. And then back to this main page. So, and you can read as either the hero or the heroine. It's a faith-friendly adventure told from a Christian worldview. And you can also help decide what Ty and Liv will do next. So this is a serialized story. It comes out episodically. And at the end of each episode, you and the rest of the readers globally get to vote for what the moral decision that Ty and Liv will do at the end of each episode. And the most popular vote is what actually happens in the next episode, which is really exciting. And then it's made for digital smart devices all the way up to smart TVs. We've got a little promo video here, which really kind of gives the vibe of the product, but we're going to dive into the product itself, so we don't have to play that. And just big picture, from the logo to the characters' backstory to the world setting, this is a story about brokenness and finding beauty in that, and not just beauty for the sake of finding beauty and trying to be optimistic, but like, what is God doing in the brokenness in our world and the beauty that exists there? And so the setting is after 100 years of earthquakes have devastated the planet, our last hope is now in the sky in a magnetic metropolis known as Halcyon City. So we're going to dive into that more when we get into the actual story. But biblical truth, epic story. So this story is a love letter to all of us who struggle with the brokenness of life and to the God who specializes in using those broken pieces to create something new. And so we can read as either Tyron or Olivia, Ty or Liv. Ty's the reckless scavenger from the lower rungs of the city, forced to work as a magnetic scavenger in the most dangerous part of the city known as the Hanging Ruins. Tyron Hunter is determined to build a new life for himself, no matter what he has to bury in order to do it. And Liv is our conspiracy theorist. After dinner and homework, Olivia Trace can be found in the shadows of Halcyon City as the ill-famed conspiracy theorist Skylar, determined to expose a deadly magnetic threat no one believes exists. The last part of this entire property, which is the real rocket fuel behind everything we're doing, is something we call the Guild. And we believe that every story is better with friends. And so we encourage our readers to read this story not by themselves, but with others, friends, family. And here's how. So number one, you get a guild pass. Number two, you dive into Ty and Liv's epic journey with that guild that you formed. And then three, at the end of each episode, there's a story trivia that helps prepare you to vote for what Ty and Liv will do next. And so, Sumaya, which story would you like to read, Ty's story or Liv's story tonight?
Let's try.
Pressure's on.
I know. Let's try Ty. I'm changing
You
it.
want to do Ty?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll dive in here. And so everything in the property is it's a web-based, everything is on the website. And so you can pull this up on a smartphone and all the way up to a smart TV. So I've watched it on my couch, and it's just amazing just being able to recline and read a comic right from the couch. And so if you tap or arrow on the right-hand side of the screen, so if you have a keyboard, you can arrow. And if you're on a touchscreen device like a smartphone, you hold it sideways, and then you can tap on the right-hand side of the screen to go forward. And that's how you progress through the actual story. And then if you want to go back, you can tap or arrow on the left-hand side of the screen. So again, if you're on a smartphone, you tap on the back button on the left-hand side and you go back. If you're on a keyboard, you can arrow back to go backward. And then, so that's how you read the entire property. And so it's very intuitive that way. And then we have this little navigation menu up in the top. You can go back to the home page, you can go to the next story. The story path is where all the voting takes place. You can go there, or when you're in Ty's story, you can bounce over to Liv's really easily, or vice versa. So I think that's pretty much it. There's a little bit of unlockable content, secret stuff that's within the story. We'll get to that. Big shout out to the entire team. Again, we just won really significant award just about 2 weeks ago. So super excited and thankful for the amazing team that helped bring this to life. And so, yeah, let's dive in. We got a couple ads. Shout out to these guys, Art of Homage. They do some amazing work They're actually a Christian apparel company, and they do a lot of really cool, high end, amazing apparel. But anyway, I don't want
No,
to.
that the apparel looks really good. I encourage
Apparel
everyone
is
to go and
fire.
check that out. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
when you go there, you can just literally just click the button and you'll go right to, well, I'll just click it really quick
Hmm.
just to show the interface. And
Yeah,
you'll go right to their
definitely.
website, all the stuff, really killer stuff. So we always want to have partnerships with brands that are aligned missionally, but also are going to be valuable to the actual readers of the thing. And so I remember reading X-Men comics growing up, and you'd have this scene where Wolverine has got his claws out and he's diving towards Magneto, and you flip the page and it's like Care Bears VHS set or whatever, and it's just like, all right, come on. So we're trying not to do that.
Right.
So yeah. Okay, so one thing we're going to do, which is what we encourage everyone to do when they're reading it in a guild, is to read it out loud with the other members of your guild. And so the only big question we have is basically, are we doing sound effects or are we not doing sound effects?
Do you mean like ourselves with sound
Yes.
effects? I'll leave the
Yes.
sound effects to you.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll be the
Yes.
sound effects guy. Okay.
Yes.
That's always a big thing. It really ties to how theatric people want to get with the reading.
I
So
love that.
I'll be the sound effects guy.
Yes.
And basically, what we'll do is we'll read until the artwork changes. And when the artwork changes, the other person will read. And we'll just kind of bounce back and forth that way. Okay. So I'll start us off here. And again, I'm just tapping on the right hand side of the screen to go forward. As the world lay splintered and high kingdoms fall, I pray to remember the reach of your call. See, I'm going in for my real like James Earl Jones theatrical.
Mhm. The smooth voice.
What you give us to see, the beautiful, the broken, the treasured remains of what was once spoken. And when I am cut by the fragments of fear, the edges of darkness, the dull end of drear, please God remind me that I am also a part of the blood-rimmed shards that you hold in the dark. Halcyon Guard Creed, General Farrell. We'll see that name Halcyon throughout, and we'll also learn a little bit more about who General Farrell is as the story progresses.
Wastelands 2184 AD. 100 years of earthquakes have devastated the planet. Little evidence remains of the world that once was. All we have left now is in the sky. Halcyon City, the last city on Earth, suspended a mile above the Atlantic Ocean by way of an advanced magnetic technology known as ferrotech. Upon its discovery, mankind stood on the brink of the unimaginable, a technology that granted precise control over the bond, movement, and distance between ferromagnetic objects, objects built into every facet of our society's infrastructure.
The key to controlling ferrotech was lost, however, in a tragic accident that nearly destroyed all that we built. It was called the anomaly, a perfect storm of magnetic variables said to be impossible to replicate. The one behind the anomaly has evaded capture for nearly 10 years. The past, however, is often much harder to escape, no matter how far you run.
The hanging ruins. Gotta get out of here or we're dead. Only way is over that chasm. No way, that jump will kill us before the old man does. Simple question. Do you guys trust me? No. Perfect.
Perfect.
I got an
I
idea.
got
Oh,
it. Oh, sorry.
your
Perfect. I got an
turn.
idea. Ty, don't do it. There's nothing but ocean under us.
It's too far.
I know. Ty. I'm starting to think you guys are going soft. One of these days, your luck's gonna run out, Ty. Yeah, and I just hope I'm there to see it. Just come on.
How did you know that ledge was there? Sometimes you just have a good feeling, Wade. And I was out here last week. I'm glad you're not some speck in the ocean right now, Ty, but let's make this quick. I'm pretty sure we shouldn't be down here. I'm sure Oldman still would love to see you if you want to go back up there. I heard he's mellowed out over the last few years. Might only take your hand off. Besides, my job is to make sure you have some actual fun on your last day down here, Wade, whether you like it or not. I'm with Wade. I heard this whole area is haunted. Haunted? What are we, kids? Hurry up with that light, Jax, will ya? I'm trying.
Just out of curiosity, Jax, when you say haunted, I mean weird, unexplained magnetic anomalies haunted. That's just a ruse the old man cooked up to keep people off his property. I mean, come on. The ex-wife gets buried in the anomaly, then comes back just to destroy everything you own? Sounds a bit far-fetched if you ask me.
Clearly, you've never been married, Ty. Yeah, women. You guys are hopeless.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Who are these kids? First things first, we're not kids. Second things second, I'm glad you asked.
Jax, the tech genius. One thing to know about the ruins is that everything down here is broken, and I mean really broken. Jax doesn't have much of a stomach for the eerie atmosphere it creates, but the constant supply of retro tech seems to make up for it.
Dump. The muscle. His name has less to do with the fact that he once ate 32 dumplings in one sitting, and more to do with the fact that the latrines were clear across camp the night that he did it. Worst part was, he almost made it.
Wade, the strategist. He was the first face I saw when I got down here, and I've been stuck seeing his ugly mug ever since. One thing I do know, Wade never takes a first step without thinking at least 4 more ahead, which makes him the best scavenger in all the ruins. Next to yours truly, of course.
Hi, the dashing hero. So what can I say? Dashing hero sounds good. Wait, scratch that. Ty, the dashing daredevil. That's better.
Wade, you believe me, right? I mean, nobody knows who caused the anomaly. Why couldn't it be some crusty old lady? The only thing worth believing now is that I'm one good haul away from getting this detainment cuff off my wrist. So I don't want to risk any unnecessary complications with the warden or his goons. You and I have a very different relationship with risk, Wade, especially when it comes to the warden and his goons. Besides, I, for one, think we got it pretty good down here. I mean, name one thing they have in the city that we don't have down here. Girls. Girls. Okay, name 2. I heard they have a whole museum dedicated to the anomaly. Would be cool to actually see it from a safe museum-like distance, I mean. I was too young to remember any of it, but they say the whole city glowed for hours after the anomaly. Can you imagine that?
I can, because I saw it when it happened, the night my parents died. And I'd do anything to make sure no one has to see another anomaly again.
Wait, I'm sorry, man. Wasn't your fault, Jax. All I care about now is how soon I can get out of here. Hey, I got an idea. How about you ladies stop digging up the past and see if there is something around here worth digging up instead? For once, Ty, you might be onto something. Is that? No way.
A skeleton! Look at his gear. He must have been one of those city guardians. A halcyon guardian. I thought they were all dead. Well, this guy definitely is. They say the guardians were there. That they were the ones who caused the anomaly.
What's this? Looks familiar. I remember seeing one of these when I was... Dude.
We're gonna be rich.
Thank God I haven't had a good haul in over a month. I don't know what you're better at, Ty. Getting us into trouble or getting us out of it with epic magnetic finds like this. I do what I can, Dump. But if we're thanking anyone, it should be Old Man Still. No way this would still be here if his junkyard were up in the city. Okay, Specs, tell me what I'm looking at.
Halcyon ring. This object appears to be a halcyon ring, or at least a broken piece of one. Halcyon rings are a vital piece of ferrotech. Every halcyon guard wields one, which grants them power over magnetic objects. The engraved owl indicates that it may have belonged to a member of the Sage class of guardians, best known for their wisdom, poise, and insight.
So Wade, you say it was these dopes who caused the anomaly, huh?
Scoof.
This poor sap look familiar? Dude, shut up. I'm just saying, Jax, they're still looking for for whoever dig it. Just imagine if...
Scoof.
Wait, you guys hear that? Hear what? That sound, Einstein, it sounds like buzzing.
Scoof.
Might be, might be some electronic device he was carrying.
You think his gear still works? Oh man, if it does, we're going to be the richest scavengers in the whole camp. Wade, how many puffs of that inhaler are you going to take? Wade?
Bees! Buzz, buzz. Ah! Buzz, buzz.
The Way of Yahweh, Thai, Part 1, Fracture Theory. Wrist out, hold still, move on.
That evening, we're home. I can't believe we made it.
Yeah, with almost none of that gear. My face hurts. I had no idea bees were so fast. I had no idea I was so fast. Guess I just needed the right motivation.
Said move on, mouth drooler. Speaking of motivation, looks like Miss Pepper's scanning tonight. I am so not going to miss this. Without the right motivation, just about every scanner in the ruins has been known to lose track of the best hauls of the day, only to find them later and turn them in themselves. Most just want money or chew, but for some, the cost is much higher. I call hair, nails, smile.
I can move faster on these two artificial knees, Alvarez. Get that detainment cuff over here.
I must say, Miss Pepper, your nails look even more beautiful than normal. And you boys look puffier than normal. Shut up and hold still. Yes, ma'am. Move on. Hold still, young. Not sure you're leaving me much of a choice, Miss Pepper. Just seeing that smile of yours again. I mean, grief, you're even worse than the last one. It looks like you've been making out with a cactus. Keep it moving, fudge butt.
Hold still. It might be the starlight out this evening, Miss Pepper, but did you do something different with your hair? Save it, kid. Haven't changed my hair in 25 years. Keep it moving, Hunter. And don't forget to take that teenager B.O. with you. Next! Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm still laughing from that last. So, I see we went with a new eye color tonight. Classy. Goes along with your whole outfit thingy. Outfit thingy, huh? And looks like you won't be leaving quite as soon as you thought. 2 years, 0 months, 1 day. Debt increased. Wait, Miss Pepper. His debt. It was almost paid off. How could you do that? I'd love to take credit, boys, but it wasn't me. This one came straight from the warden. Good luck smooth talking him. All right, that's it.
Wait, Ty, where are you going? Where do you think? Don't do it. It's not worth it, man. What do you mean it's not worth it? He can't just add 2 years to our debt for no reason. He can and he will, Ty. Just face it. He's holding all the cards. Well, we can't just sit back and take it. What did you expect, Ty? Wade's the best scavenger down here. The warden wasn't just going to let him go. Please stand by. But that doesn't give him the right to just... Wait, what? Wait, you guys hear that? Hear what? Ty, your backpack's glowing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was like so immersed in the story.
Yeah.
I was like, what's about to happen next? Like, I had to know. Okay, please stand by. Anomaly, threat level, delta, proximity 0. It's that ring from the skeleton. Anomaly, threat level, delta, proximity 0. Dude, I thought you turned that in. Anomaly, threat level, delta, proximity 0. It's alive. It's not alive. It's just on, which is even stranger. What's that mean, proximity 0? It means there are 0 threat levels. No, it doesn't. It said delta threat level. Delta.
Maybe it's some sort of locator. Wait, Jax, you're a stone cold genius. Those rings are what the old Halcyon Guard used to repair magnetic malfunctions. It was how they would find them. So what does that have to do with anything, Jax? It means that with a little creative hacking, that ring can pinpoint any source of magnetic disturbance in the area, which means we can use it to find the one who caused the anomaly. A bounty big enough to pay off all our debts 3 times over. I gotta say, Ty, you outdid yourself this time. Yeah, sure. Bedtime, boys. Get back to the barracks. So that settles it. We'll head out first thing tomorrow morning. By first thing, do you mean after breakfast? Yeah, dump, after breakfast. Okay, I'm in. I'll be there. Yeah, can't wait.
Later. No. No.
Can't tell how long I've been running. Anomaly, threat level delta, proximity 0. But it's not fast or far enough. I can hear his cold footsteps behind me. Can't let him have the ring.
Leave me alone. Dear boy, you need not concern yourself with what you saw back there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help. I believe you have something that belongs to me.
Crack, crack, crack. Crack, crack, crack.
No!
Crack, crack, crack.
No. They won't understand. I have to go.
Getting ready for a deep dive into our world to prepare you for Shaping Ty's epic journey. So we're gonna hit start here. So the fun part about this guild is where this is where all the conversations come in. The conversations about the persons reading the story, and then the faith conversations and about who we are as people, and then who Ty is and what's behind what he's going through. So all of that's mixed in here. So, but to begin, every guild needs a cool name. So take a few minutes to discuss with your members and enter it below. So what should our guild name be?
I'm really thinking about that.
I think it should
Curiosity.
be veiled something. Then that'll tie it to the podcast, and then because basically
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we'll just call it the Unveiled Crew.
And if I was a better speller, did I spell unveiled right, or is it I before E except
You
after C?
did. You did.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I always get confused with that. So
I know it's kind of a tricky one, but you did well.
okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
teacher. Okay. When insects attack, Ty and his friends come across several valuable objects but pay the price against an angry swarm of bees. Is there a type of insect you're afraid of? Why? A. Bees, wasps, hornets, please share. B. Beetles, please share. C. Ants, please share. D. Moths, you definitely have to share. And E. Spiders, we get it. No need to share. I'm definitely a spider guy.
Hmm.
Like, I can't stand spiders. When I was, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years old, my sisters, I have two older sisters, and the age gap was just big enough for me to want to hang out with them, but they were kind of like, not really down for all that because I was too young. And but one time it was a Saturday afternoon, and both my sisters were like, Jason, do you want to watch a movie with us? And I was like super excited, and I was like, oh my gosh, I finally made it past the velvet rope, and my sisters want to hang out with me and all this. And they said, we're going to watch this movie, and we're going to go and get some snacks really quick. So they put it on, Kingdom of the Spiders.
Oh
This
no.
was I wouldn't even call it a B movie. It was like a D movie. It was just super low budget, but the whole thing was like tarantulas everywhere. And I remember they were falling from the vent above the stove. They were crawling out of the toilets. They were everywhere. And ever since then, those big, fat, nasty tarantulas, I can't rock with them. So I'm definitely a spider averse person. Peter Parker, Miles notwithstanding. So what about you?
That's funny. I'm actually intrigued by spiders. I remember maybe about 10 years ago, I was driving with someone after church and we wanted to go visit Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, or what used to be his ranch. And as we were driving down the long stretch to get to his house, there was about like several spiders going across the road the size of my hand.
Several spiders
Several.
walking
And
across the road?
I was so curious. I
What?
pulled
They were
over and
big
she's
enough to
like,
see them?
stop. And I got out the car. They were just it because we're out in the woods. Like Neverland is kind of out towards, I want to say like Solvang and
Spiders crossing the road.
crossing the road, and you could see them from the car. They were really skinny, but they were the size of a tarantula, but they were super skinny
Oh
spiders, like the
my
size of my hand.
gosh.
I'd
No,
never seen
thank
anything
you.
like it. And so I was like, I have
Mm.
to see this. I have to get out the car. And she was like, what, are you crazy? And she's like, no, no. So I get out, I run over and looked at it, and that's all I had to do. I just needed to see it up
Oh
close. And then
my
I got back in the
gosh.
car and drove off.
What if they were like one of those jumping
Jumping,
spiders
I
that
know
jump
that's what
on
she
you and they're
said.
like poisonous and all that
It's
craziness?
like my curiosity, I had to satisfy it. Like I was hoping they didn't do that, but yeah. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say bees. Wasp and hornets. I just don't like the sting, and I've been
Oh
stung a
yeah.
couple of times. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
You're not a whatchamacallit, are you? Where you got to get the EpiPen and all
allergic. Oh
that.
no, no, thank goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say B.
Uh-huh.
And okay, so here's a trivia one.
Hmm.
This is worth 10 extra points. So the point value is directly correlated with how much voting power your guild has. And so each member of a guild comes in with one vote, but when they get the trivia right, it changes your one vote to 10 votes and multiplies that by the size of your guild. And
Oh
so
wow.
if you have a larger guild, you're just going to have a bunch of power in terms of what the next story is.
Oh
So
wow.
anyway, within the Halcyon Guard Creed, what types of things cut? A, the edges of darkness. B, the fringes of fear. C, the dull end of drear. D, the brink of dismay. E, the fragments of fear. And or F, the limits of isolation. So you can choose as many as you like.
I'm gonna go with the fragments of fear.
Okay. Any others?
I think that's it.
Okay. And undoable. Ty's been running his entire life from the fact that it was he who caused the anomaly that nearly destroyed the last city on Earth. When was the time you realized you'd done something you couldn't undo? A, share a personal story, or B, I plead the fifth.
Was that my question?
As for the guild, so the
Oh, okay. I was
guild
gonna
gets a
say I
chance to
plead the
talk about
fifth.
it. So I'll share. I'll be vulnerable here and share a story because that's part of one of the things that we are really that we see really powerfully
Hmm.
is particularly when the adults share first,
Yeah.
but even when the students share, it's like we're all kind of carrying stuff that's part of the brokenness of the human experience, and some of that is stuff that's happened to us, and other times it's stuff we've done to other people. And
Hmm.
so being able to talk through that to whatever degree a person is comfortable with, that's a huge part of what we're trying to do with this property. So I remember we had like growing up, you got a group of friends, you know where their houses are, and you knock on the door, can so and so come out and play, blah, 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 blah. So I had a friend that was probably about quarter mile away from the house I grew up in, and his name was Matt. He had a whole family, a lot of kids. I want to say he was one of like six, maybe 5 or 6 kids, and so he was the oldest, and he had like bing, 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 all the way down to like a little. I think it was a little sister, and then a little brother that was a little bit older than the little sister. I may be mixing my siblings up a little bit, but we were playing around, and it was a number of us over there. He had a basketball hoop in the back of his attached to his garage, and we were messing around. And I never grew up with any younger siblings, so I just kind of like knew how to deal with kids my age and older. But his younger brother was at that wonderful age where like when they repeat things and they do things over and over again, it's like endlessly entertaining for him. And he was doing something. I don't remember what he was doing, but it was like on version 4 or 5, and I was like, okay, I got it. Stop. You know what I mean? And he was only like 5, maybe 6 years old. But he kept doing it, and by the fifth or sixth, seventh time, I was like, oh man. I was starting to get really upset, but he was just playing and he didn't read that.
Hmm.
And I was getting really frustrated. And he did it one more. I told him, I said, if you do it one more time, I'm telling you, you're going to regret it, or whatever I said. I was trying to warn him, like, and he was just playing. He was just being a kid. But I was like super ticked off. I don't know what he was doing. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't that serious. But anyway, I was really upset. And then he did it one more time. And I said, all right, that's it. And so I ran after him, and he started, he did that like kind of playful squeal and
Hmm.
ran down the lawn. He was having a good old time this whole time. I was not. I picked up a rock while I was running. And I can still remember slow motion of that because I was so upset But I was like, there's no way I'm going to hit him. I'm just going to scare him. He'll understand, that I was serious. I don't have great aim at all. And so I was just like, yeah, it'll just fly past his head. Everything will be fine. He'll get the point. The second that thing left my finger, I was like, oh my gosh, like this thing is going to hit him. Or what if it does hit him? And there was like this huge amount of regret that happened the second it left my finger. And sure enough, as one would suspect, it hit him right in the back of the head. And he was crying and there was blood involved. It wasn't like a huge amount of blood, but he probably had to get stitches, I'm guessing. It was like, it wasn't like a little trickle. It was, and man, I felt like horrible, like right after that. And I remember his dad had to come back from wherever, I think they went out to do some shopping or something like that. And it was like the worst thing. And I felt so bad. And then because of the fear of that and like the embarrassment of that and like how bad I felt, when his dad came back, he was like, Jason, what do you have to say for yourself? And I compounded it. You know how like when you're in the anyway, I don't want to try to excuse myself. I when his dad said, what do you have to say for yourself or whatever, I said, well, you told me to watch him, because that was what his dad said, but it was like the worst possible response, and you're kind of doubling down because you feel like you're backed in the corner and all that. Anyway, needless to say, that ended the friendship, and was like, yeah, it was just really bad. And so I still remember that, and I'm sure he still remembers. I'm sure the whole family remembers that. But yeah, so that was like horrible. And I was probably, I don't know how old I was, maybe 11, maybe 12, 10. I was in the junior high age, but old enough to know better. And yeah, that was just like, and it was one of those times where I remember like reflecting back on that, where this kind of like white hot anger kind of comes on to the point where you don't think about anything else except that kind of primal whatever. And so reflecting on that years later, I realized that that was the enemy that was like inciting that level of just kind of like non-thinking, just reaction, whatever. And so now when I feel that, I just force myself to not do anything for at least 10 seconds and then just breathe through it. But anyway, that's, yeah, it's not a good story at all. I wish it was less whatever than that, but yeah.
I really like that you opened up because I think if we were actually in a youth group and I was initially reluctant, I would have had the courage to share after hearing you go forth, especially as the adult. So I think that was
Yeah.
like awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I think part of it is that one of the things that I hear a lot, because I do a bunch of mentoring with youth groups and have done that for like 15 plus years, is that youth group tends to be a little more real than church. I hate to say it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's a little bit more acknowledgement of we're not quite there yet. Imagine that.
Humility.
Fallen world. Yeah. And
Yeah.
on the Sunday experience, for any of us who go to church on a semi regular basis, there's a lot of keeping up appearances and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's great in the
Yeah.
lobby. And they were just arguing on the car
Yeah.
ride there, all that stuff. And so I think part of the thing that we are really trying to do with this entire property is acknowledge that we are part of the brokenness that we know exists. And it's really easy to be pointing fingers at when people cause brokenness to us or in the general. But we are all patients in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
people need to see Christians acknowledge the fact that we're not the doctor. Like Jesus is the doctor, we're the
Yeah.
patients. We can be at different levels of kind of medical health, I guess. There's stuff that we should be healed from, but we're still in the process of healing from other stuff.
Mm.
And I think people need to see that, and we need to get reps in as believers of just being okay acknowledging that. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so as uncomfortable as it is, you know, I'm like, yeah, I got to tell these stories, demonstrate myself, and let other people know that it's okay. You can still be loved by God and still have made really bad mistakes. And
Mm.
young people need
I
to know
love
that. They
that.
need to hear that. My parents would always talk to me and my sisters about, like, what is God doing in your life in this moment? This thing happened, it was good, or this thing happened, it was bad. But
Mm.
they didn't stop there. They would also say, what do you think the enemy is doing in
Mm.
this good situation, or maybe in this bad situation is better, probably a better example. And so I grew up with this kind of like this idea that, you know, it's okay and it's actually really wise to examine both sides of the spiritual realm to see what's the chess game going on. And when we do this, these kind of questions as a group, you start to see the pattern of the enemy,
Mm.
because there's these very basic things that he does to human beings that pushes us off of our block.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to realize, like, my gosh, dude is a master at distorting, destroying, breaking things that God created, but he's using some very standard tactics. And a lot of us end up, there was one time I was doing a group of guys. There was like 4 stories about throwing rocks and hitting people and regretting the process, regretting
Mm.
that whole experience. And it was a dad, and it was a son, and it was a couple other guys that were kind of in between their ages.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, wow, like I had never heard those kind of stories and the pattern that you see. And so that's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff we're trying to do. So I'm going to keep moving for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of time. So
That's
we
super
shared a
good.
story, and then leap or look first. Ty describes Wade as a friend that never takes a first step without thinking at least 4 more ahead. When you need to make an important decision, how do you rank the following? Why is your top priority your top priority? And so these you can move up and down and
Mm.
reorganize these. And
Mm-hmm.
so since we're a guild of 2, you can have a guild of
Mm-hmm.
6 or 8 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, let's rank these. So the first one in this order is what's right for me. The second one is my personal safety. And the third one is what I want to do. Fourth one is what I'm told is right. And the safety of others is the last one. So yeah, let's have a
Mm.
conversation about what's the hierarchy of this. I'll tell you right out of the gate. It's
Mm-hmm.
not good, but I resist being told what to do. So I have an unhealthy
Yeah.
whatever for that, and it's unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I can relate.
What would be your number one thing that you're factoring in when you?
This is very selfish, but what's right for me?
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not okay, but
It's true.
acknowledged. Yep. What would you say might be your second one? I would, again, in the theme of the unveiledness, I
Uh-huh.
would say, my heart and my mind wants to say, oh yeah, safety of others. But I'm like, if
That's at the
I'm
bottom
real,
for me.
the primal, yeah, I feel like this is my order right here. No,
Mm.
I'm going to do it that way.
Mm.
Because I acknowledge that, yeah, that's probably number one for me too.
Mm-hmm.
This would be my order. But would you switch it down for you to this
I
one?
would. I would put what I want to do at number two, which I feel so bad about. This is very telling. I feel like
Oh,
it
okay.
really,
Number
this
two.
does
Okay.
unveil, like it pulls, like this particular activity kind of reveals your heart and the things that you need to work on. So I really like
Hmm.
this. Yeah, the same.
Yeah,
That's what I
we're all
exactly the
patience.
order I would have it.
God is patient with his patience.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So then we organize those and we hit okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Ty's story path. Now you're ready to decide what Ty will do next. Choose wisely. Ty's path, part 1. Jolted awake by a nightmare that forced him to relive the day he split Halcyon City in two, Ty decides he must A. Use his powers to destroy the ring so that it can't identify him. B. Turn the ring back into the camp. Or C, use his powers to try and break out of the camp. So this is the last part
Mm-hmm.
where, as the guild, again, we're a guild of 2, but if you got a guild of 5 or 6, it's like all right, open up the floodgates. Let's debate about what should he do, and that's going to be what we vote for. So,
Mm,
what say you?
that's awesome. I'm so hard-headed. I would say use his powers to try and break out of the camp.
Use his powers to try to bring out okay. And then there's also this big debate about like, especially with the adults, are we saying what we want to see entertainment wise, or are we saying what he should do morally, which tend to be diametrically opposed?
Right. So what he
And we
should.
just leave it open. We're like this. We're starting a conversation,
Yeah.
and this is communal storytelling. And so whatever the readership gives
That's
us
good.
of these three
Hmm.
options, that's what's going to happen. And so, if you want it to be more of a moral choice, or more of an entertainment choice, or more of a break tie down to his, you know, like basic kind of, break him all the way down and build him back up, all of
Hmm.
that's part of the readership's choice.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing. So you really like because there's a consequence, or there's something that kind of course correlates to every, like whichever step you make. That's really cool.
yeah, yep. So if in this case, if we were to say use his powers, and then we hit to break out of the camp, hit submit, and congratulations. Think your guild made the right choice for Ty. You're not alone. Watch as the most popular vote explodes from screens in Ty Part 2, Broken Silence. So this is where the polls closed a while ago for Ty Part 1. So the votes
Mm,
have been set. Part two's votes are still open. And
mm,
so the votes are only open, or the polls are only open for the most current episode, because
mm-hmm.
we're telling one singular story.
Yeah.
But congratulations, the one you voted for is the one that
Hmm.
actually happened. So that's the experience. I'm going to click on this really quick, and I'm going to go to the path. And then what we have is, this is after you get done with the story, you can go to the open polls. There's almost basically a month left for the polls to be open. And this is the end of Tie Part 2. And so we just read Tie Part 1, which was Fracture Theory, and the most popular vote was C. And then at the end of Tie Part 2, Broken Silence, the votes are still open. So for anybody, excuse me, watching at home, you can get your pass and still vote for Tie Part 2, which will affect what comes out in Part 3. And so that's the experience. I know that was a lot, but we're super excited about it. We're getting fantastic feedback from both the young readers, middle grade age, some teenagers as well, and even some college kids that are like, "Yo, this is nice," and then parents are really digging it as well. So I'm gonna stop screen sharing here and turn it back over to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm blown away. I wish I had like a little sound effect for applause, because
Ah.
that that demonstration, I think, was super informative, and it kind of gave me a deep perspective into how enjoyable this would be for, again, like you said, adults, children, teenagers. I really appreciate you opening up that experience to the audience and letting us kind of travel with you into that story.
Yeah.
And I believe that the audience, I'm sure you guys will see value in having young people engage in that experience. So now we want to kind of go into your life, and just we got a little
Yeah.
bit of a story that you shared, but
Mm-hmm.
when I think about what you said, it's something that you said that was super inspiring. You talked about the beauty in brokenness.
Yeah.
And clearly, when you look around in 2025, we're in a broken world. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on, there's all kinds of things that are happening. What was it that motivated you? What did you see in the world that motivated you to uncover this story, or to start to draft it and pull it together and kind of go
Yeah.
into this project?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's been like, I grew up in the church, and I think when you spend a fair amount of time in the church and you start to get maybe more involved with the kind of elements of it, and you start becoming an observer and be more of a participant. One of the things that you have to start navigating is like the inconsistency of yourself and your own execution of the claims of the faith,
Mhm.
and then that for other people too. And so the younger you are when you start that journey, the more it becomes, the earlier it hits you. And so I was a kid and I was looking at, man, these are really loving people, but I was seeing inconsistencies. And then you obviously you have that in your own house. And then if you want to be reflective, which growing up in a church kind of forces you to at least have some version of that, you see that in yourself. And you have to kind of weigh these two things. And so, yeah, it was very probably junior high or so when you kind of, when at least when I started to really just settle in the idea that people are amazing and we also are really kind of messed up. And those two things are true at the same time for every single person. And as much as in our current philosophy, we want to categorize people as good and bad and castigate and, push people to the margins for their brokenness and for their stuff. And I understand that desire. We're all on the outskirts if that's how we're going to roll.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it just started to really hit me in that around that age. And then just journeying with that into adulthood, you just see it more and more often where it's just like, man, this is a beautiful experience, but all of this kind of messy stuff. And so it's kind of like those animals and you have those big oil spills and you find these animals that are just covered in oil and you see the animal underneath, but it's like a lot of mess. But it's still a beautiful animal under there, you know what I mean? And so it's like some of us got a couple areas that are a little bit more scrubbed down, but we're all kind of covered, unfortunately, until Jesus comes back. We're hopefully working on that cleaning process and got some Dawn liquid soap scrubbing us down. But yeah, that dichotomy is really, I think, part of the one of the most important parts of trying to live out what Jesus is calling us to, which is like love for God and love for others. And it's hard to love other people if everything you're seeing is kind of dominated by their worst qualities. Yeah.
That's so powerful. I think because in this age of social media where you can see so quickly someone's worst qualities, for
Yeah.
example, I hate to just throw out a name, but I will. I remember years ago when I used to see Justin Bieber as a teenager and the way that paparazzi and the media would just throw out all kinds of stories. And I would hear sometimes adults talk about a teenager and the mistakes that he was making. And I'm thinking, he's just a kid. Like, if I had a camera following me around when I was
Exactly.
16 or 17,
Mm-hmm.
there's no telling what I would say or do at that time, or even 12 or
Mm-hmm.
13. And
Let
so,
alone
with
all the access and the
yes,
carte blanche that someone in that situation is given as a
yes.
teenager. Wow.
Yes. And so,
Wow.
so many children, not to the level of like a celebrity, but they are exposed if they're out there on social media. They may feel like they're judged or like they are. We live in such a critical society. They may feel
Yeah.
like they're constantly under criticism. I think it's really
Yep.
key and valid what you're saying to just kind of really lean into the fact that we are all flawed, like you said, and that's part of the beauty of it. But we can work through those things and not be so judgmental. And so,
Mm-hmm.
especially like you said, when we consider ourselves, I think that's awesome. And so, what would you say to a parent, right, who says, "Look, Jason, I'm having difficulty communicating with my son or my daughter. They're asking me some hard questions, and I really don't have the answers.
Mm.
But how can you? How is this going to?" Help them out or what can you do to help me out? Like, how
Yeah.
would this experience that we just kind of took a peek at, which I
Yeah.
already know it will, but I want you to kind of tell us, like, in what
Mm.
ways do you think that would be beneficial for
Yeah.
someone who is having a disruption with the communication between them
Yeah.
and their child and just being able to communicate certain ideas to them or even not even communicate certain ideas, but open up the dialogue?
Yeah. So my question, my response to that is going to be equally. It may be frustrating for some, but I think it'll be really helpful, possibly. So I do not have kids, and I am since I volunteer with kids for a couple hours a week and then send them back. Touch points are limited, and so I am acutely aware of how much I don't know about actually raising a kid or kids. So that's the foundation. Because of that, the answer that I would give is I would ask a lot of questions, mainly because I don't have kids. But I think that concept still would apply for parents who do have kids, because today is the first day that that kid is this old. And this is the first day you've had to parent a kid that old. And the questions is really what I think opens up a lot of stuff. And the idea of mom or dad actually asking a question, which underneath that is saying, I don't have it all figured out, like an honest question, not like a gotcha kind of thing, like, let me win an argument type deal, but just an honest, like, tell me what you think about this, or tell me, how you see that, or like an open-ended one that's really about helping that young person share a part of themselves. And that's really hard to do. And that's ultimately why we made this story and we built it this way, is because stories help kind of grease the skids and they're onto those awkward conversations. And so if you're talking about Ty or Liv, it's easier to talk about mistakes and brokenness, or trying to find the truth and trying to get to the truth and what the truth actually means and all that stuff. So that's how we have engineered this property to be able to really do that for parents, but also do that with friends. So one of the things that we're really excited about is the fact that we have two different storylines for the boys' adventure, so the hero and then the heroines, because we know there's some differences. And you peek over the fence and you might learn a little bit about the other side. But we want to really honor a real, like, I have a big heart for things that are demonstrated are the things that we often are able to do. And so we want to make sure that we have a hero's journey that says, what does it look like to go from boyhood to manhood? But then also a heroine's journey that says, what does it look like to go from girlhood to womanhood? And those are rough journeys respectively, but they're different. And we want to make sure we create space for those kind of conversations. If your dad has a daughter, it's really tough, I would imagine, to be able to guide her in that realm. And so this story is built to be able to do that for both sides of the equation. So yeah, questions. That's the answer. I was super long-winded, but yeah.
No, I think it was very well thought and highly appropriate because it's taking into consideration that yes, you work with kids as I do as well, but that doesn't mean if you're not a parent that you're an expert. But like you're
Right.
saying, I would still ask questions, and I think that was such a good answer of you saying that and just encouraging that dialogue, and then your product creates that opportunity, a rich opportunity to talk about things, and like you said, looking at it through the lens of fiction, and then also being able to kind of walk alongside parallel. Because one thing that I did notice, and I'm sure the viewers noticed, is it really is immersive. Like you really do feel like you're in that moment with those characters, and it's very relatable. And then the questions allow you to reflect and look at different decisions and things that you've had in your life that have impacted you and how it's formed who you are, but also submitting those things, to God and allowing Him to kind of work through certain
Yes.
things. So
Yeah.
I really do see the value in what you're offering. And correct me if I'm wrong. If someone, obviously, we know that they need to go to grouplore.com, and we'll make sure that we put the link in the bio. This ideally would be for youth groups, right? And also households, right? Maybe people who
Yeah.
want to have home Bible studies with their children, but we're looking at youth pastors. We're looking at different ways.
Yeah.
I'm not
Christian
leaving out anything.
educators.
Yes.
Yeah. Any
Okay.
kind of mentorship organizations that hold a Christian ethos. So there's a number of those that are out there that are working on character building with young people. So it's a really great activity for them. But yeah, the parents that have the kitchen table conversations that may just be, how's your day? Yeah, it's fine. Boom, boom, boom. And then, put the headphones on, walk out. What we're trying to do is give kind of like a game night where you have a little bit more of an entertaining way to have deeper conversations. And it is unapologetically an entertainment property. It's not a curriculum or a Bible study or a track or anything like that. It's just what we had, which was an entertainment property, but it's got the underpinnings of all of the deep kind of faith conversations built into it. So we're definitely looking out for the young person that's saying, "Oh my gosh, is this going to be another lecture for mom and dad, or is this going to be?" Maybe I'm projecting. Me and my sisters had a lot of that growing up, which I appreciate now,
Yeah.
decades later. But we want it to be fun and engaging, but also have real truth, real insight from the word inside of it, built into the DNA. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That's really good. Okay, I have one final question because
Hmm.
this has just been. I really enjoyed this. This might be one of
Yeah,
my
this has
favorite
been great.
episodes, honestly. I really enjoyed the experience of it and going into that, and then going into our dialogue now. And so I'm just wondering, with your process of coming up with this entire concept, what was your process like? What was your journey like? And what words would you have to encourage someone who has like a desire to create? It doesn't have to be what you
Yeah,
created, but they want to create
yeah,
something and maybe
yeah.
they're kind of struggling with it.
Oh my
Like
gosh, don't get me
what would
started. I got a
yeah.
couple. I got a
Okay,
couple.
no, please like bring it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So in my case, this has been like 20, it feels weird to say that, 28 years in the making. So this was a idea that I feel like God placed in me when I was in college, and I should have been listening to the instructor, and I was sketching these characters, and God kind of like said, there's a story inside of these characters, and these are the characters that are in this. So it went through a lot of different iterations. I'm about to show all the gray that I got. The first version of this was going to be a newspaper. I always wanted to do the interactive communal storytelling. So it was going to be a newspaper, ideally Sunday with in color, because back then you had the black and whites during the week, and then the colors, and then everyone would be able to vote for what happens. And then the next Sunday that was, and then it went to MySpace after that again.
Wow.
Yes.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then it went to like, oh, okay, let's try to get this in like a printed thing in Barnes and Noble. Saw these, I was imagining like a perfect bound kind of book that would be yay thick and it'd be panoramic. And then, every book would have a thing at the end, and then the next book would be the vote. And then the iPad came out, and the app world was already rocking and rolling, but then we ended up rolling it into an app, and I did a whole bunch of prototyping, brought it out to San Diego Comic Con, talked to a bunch of people, got a lot of good feedback, and this latest iteration is the one that we actually went live with. So that over those 28 years, and the latest iteration is more or less a web app, not to get too technical about it, but so it went through about 4 or 5 different forms, and the process was like, I got these characters I sketched on a loose leaf sheet of paper. How do I do that professionally? And talked to my brother-in-law who worked at Target Corporation at the time, and he was in the marketing department. And I said, how do I make these look professional? He said, oh, you got to get a Mac computer. And again, I'm dating myself here, but I was like, they still make Macs? So my reference to that was like grade school. This is just around the time where Mac came back into the market. And he's like, yeah, all the people in design world, they use Macs. So you just look it up, Jay. And I was like, all right, cool. And you got to get Adobe this, Adobe that, Illustrator, Photoshop, all that. And I was like, what's an Adobe? So anyway, that process was saving up for the equipment, earning the equipment, doing a bunch of workshops and courses and self-training on the equipment. And then somewhere in the midst of all this, I realized I'm a horrible storyteller. Because I grew up from the art side. And so I was always more enamored with the art than the writing. I just took the writing for granted. And I was in my probably mid 20s, and I was like, man, I thought naively, the comic book is like, there's only a few little words in those bubbles. It's got to be pretty easy. Like you got a bunch of action, say some stuff in between. And then back to action, you're good. Oh my gosh. It's been 15, 20 years of digging into the Joseph Campbell of it all, and Save the Cat of it all. And I know a lot of writers in the writerly world, they bristle at that. When you don't know anything about writing, any of those frameworks are really helpful to kind
Oh
of
yes.
upskill you. And then moving beyond those, and really, so probably I'd say, yeah, about 20 good years of and I'm just still a green, like super green writer, like not that great. So I bring on other writers that are way better than I am, and we all break story together. But so 20 years of writing craft, and in the midst of all of that, a lot of time spent business modeling. And I know there's a lot of creative passion and fuel that people have, but I would always encourage any creative, if you can't build a business model around your creative endeavor that doesn't allow you to sustain that work, then you're not done yet. You still got to work that. You got to start business modeling. How is this going to be sustainable? Because especially if you're doing something you feel like God's calling you to do it, sustainability and being able to be there 15, 20 years later, that's part of what I think God deserves. Like if we just flame out after 2 years because we've run out of capital, or we don't have the energy, or we overestimated what we can do. And I've been guilty of all of those things. So some of this is
Yeah.
coming from like real, just hard earned experience, but the business modeling is really important. And then I would say the other piece is like asking God to help with your stuff. It sounds so weird and basic, and it took me probably 15 years before I started doing that. But God is like the creator, and he's still creating stuff, and he is the best designer and the best business modeler and the best writer and the best, like he's the best everything. And so like whatever it is you're doing, if you've got a restaurant and you're making the next, amazing dish, like invite him into that and see what he does. If you're a fashion designer and you've got some really cool like killer styles and designs you want to get out there in the market, like invite him into that. Like he's got ideas on all of this stuff. So prayerfully invite him into that, and then be open to adjusting and going the direction he wants you to go as best as we can as humans. Interpret that. I've found like when you're actually asking him, and you actually want to know, like stuff is pretty clear. he'll
Wow, that's so
he'll
true.
course correct you pretty good, but then he'll also give those affirmations when you're on the path that's lined up with his macro plan. Anyway.
That was rich. I'm glad that you answered that thoroughly, because I feel like you hit a lot of targets that I think a lot of us, the viewing audience and myself included, need to hear, that will help us get to the next level, and some things that are not often resounding like around the globe, like digitally. I feel like sometimes you hear people talk and they say the same thing, but what you said, I feel like I don't hear it often. And so I really appreciate an authentic response, and something that was so well thought about your journey. And thank you for being transparent about that as well. Hearing you talk about how long it took for you to do that project and all the different stages that you went through,
Yeah.
all I can really understand and pull from that is that it came out at the perfect time. When I look at like what's gone on in the past few years with like the pandemic, and how technology has rewired the brains of not only children but adults as well, using technology to leverage that type of excitement, and to put some morality in there, and to put some scripture and some engaging dialogue to get students and young people who may be encouraged to kind of go inward because of technology, to bring that back out of them in such a creative way, I think is just a genius idea. And I just thank you again for going through that process. And I can see, and hopefully this will encourage the audience as it encourages me, that, not to despise the process, not to despise the journey and the
Yeah.
different things, because when it's
Yeah.
time, when you're diligent and when you're faithful as you were, then it will come out at that particular time. And I believe that it will be impactful, because I've already been impacted, and I'm sure people who are watching are impacted as well. So Jason, before I close, is there any further thing that you want to share with the audience? If not, and if there is something, I'm going to let you say it, but I just want to
Yeah.
thank you for coming on
Yeah.
Sumaya
Thank
Unveiled,
you.
and for really being transparent and sharing your product in such an engaging way, so that we could really see what you're offering, and see the amazing value that is in it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm just super honored and thankful that you invited me into your space. And so I'm a huge fan. So keep doing what you're doing, sis. And yeah, I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of your interviews coming down the pipe. So, yes, in terms of like final things, I would say if anyone's interested in what we're offering, we've got 4 stories that are out right now: 2 for Tide, 2 for Live. We're working feverishly on the next 2 episodes and the ones after that. So you can go to grouplore.com. That's GROUPLORE.com. So grouplore.com, and you'll see everything there. And yeah, we'd love to have you dive in with us. We're doing some really fun stuff, and excited for you to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. And thank you for watching Sumaya Unveiled.